We've finally reached the explosive season finale of Marshals that fans have been waiting for. And honestly, after an episode packed with shocking twists, I'm already counting the days until season 2 arrives. Did Tom Weaver truly betray Casey? Was Dolly's love nothing more than a carefully crafted act? Can Calvin and Belle survive what's coming? And will Andrea really sacrifice her move to DC for Casey? There are still so many unanswered questions, so let's dive into everything together. First of all, we have to talk about Casey's huge decision in episode 12 regarding East Camp. That moment genuinely caught everyone off guard. Even though selling the property probably would have been the smartest move for Casey's future, part of me still didn't want him to completely walk away from that deep Dutton connection. Despite all the painful memories attached to East Camp, seeing it sold never felt right. But Casey found the perfect middle ground. Instead of giving it up, he chooses to keep East Camp and transform part of it into a therapy center for veterans, allowing him to move forward in a healthier and more meaningful way. At first, Tom and Dolly appear to fully support Casey's choice, but things quickly begin to feel far more suspicious than they seem. Right after Casey makes his decision, Montana practically erupts into chaos. Thomas, Miles, and Emo head to meet with the senator to discuss shutting down the mine, only to be ambushed and forced to take refuge at East Camp. Then, while Casey is desperately trying to uncover who's responsible, Thomas becomes a target once again, this time inside East Camp itself. Thankfully, Tate, Casey, the Marshals, and Emo manage to fight back before things spiral completely out of control, and luckily, none of the major characters lose their lives. But honestly, the most terrifying part was realizing just how cornered Casey really was. If the Marshals hadn't arrived when they did, the outcome could have been devastating. Another incredibly intense scene comes when Tate, much like he once did in Yellowstone while protecting Monica, is forced to kill an attacker who goes after Thomas. No matter how hard Casey tries to shield him from violence, it feels like being a Dutton means there's simply no escaping that dangerous world. That moment was absolutely heartbreaking. After all the chaos finally settles, we get a brief emotional breather as everyone attempts to return to normal life. Watching Calvin welcome Miles back into the Marshals and slowly repair his relationship with Maddie was genuinely touching, especially when she finally calls him Dad. But not everyone gets a peaceful ending. Belle's heartbreak after her husband refuses to help with her gambling debt, her gradual reconnection with Calvin, and her realization that she can finally trust him again all hit emotionally. At the same time, Andrea's emotional goodbye to Casey before leaving for DC becomes even more powerful when she ultimately decides not to leave at all. Every one of these moments carried a bittersweet feeling, and it's clear they're setting up major storylines for season 2. But without a doubt, the biggest reveal of the finale is Tom's betrayal. It turns out he's been orchestrating the attacks from the very beginning, even using his own ranch foreman to carry them out. The clue comes when the suspicious vehicle Andrea noticed earlier matches the same one used during the attack on Belle and Calvin. Then everything clicks into place when Tom's foreman steps out of that vehicle and calmly tells him, "It's handled, sir." In that instant, the truth becomes undeniable. Tom is behind everything. And what makes this even more dangerous is that both Tom and Dolly already have Casey and Tate's complete trust. So now the biggest question becomes, what happens in season 2? For starters, Calvin and Belle surviving the attack seems very likely. But once they recover, they'll probably realize that the vehicle Andrea identified is directly connected to Tom's ranch. That discovery alone could trigger a massive investigation, and once the truth starts unraveling, everything could spiral out of control. At this point, there are really only two possible paths for Tom. Either he openly admits what he's done and declares war against Casey and the Marshals, or he shifts all the blame onto his ranch foreman while pretending to be innocent. Honestly, the second option feels far more likely, especially considering how close Casey and Dolly have become. The fact that Casey trusts Dolly enough to let Tate travel to Texas with Tom says a lot. And if Tate returns home safely, that trust will only deepen. Meanwhile, if Dolly continues building that emotional bond with Casey, she could slowly manipulate him during one of his weakest moments. Step by step, that could give Tom and Dolly a chance to gain influence over East Camp and even the Marshals themselves. Still, I don't think that deception will last forever. Andrea feels like the true turning point of this entire story. She chose not to go to DC because she simply can't leave Casey or Montana behind. And once she starts investigating these attacks more closely, She's almost certainly going to uncover the truth about Tom and Dolly. The moment she tells Casey, I think he'll choose Andrea over Dolly without hesitation. Another major piece of this puzzle is Rip. Since Tate is now in Texas with Tom, there's a strong chance he'll spend time around Beth and Rip. And honestly, Rip feels like the kind of person who would immediately sense that something isn't right about Tom. He could end up warning Casey himself, or maybe even return to Montana to help directly. As for the other characters, I honestly think Season 2 will bring Calvin and Belle even closer together. Belle may finally leave her husband for good and fully commit to Calvin, giving him the emotional support he desperately needs during his cancer battle. Maddie will almost certainly stand by her father even more once she learns the truth about his condition. Meanwhile, Miles and Andrea will likely return fully to their duties within the Marshals, helping keep everything under control on the ground. And Andrea especially feels ready to finally admit her feelings for Casey, which could easily lead to a real relationship by the middle of Season 2. And finally, the question everyone is asking: when is Season 2 coming? The good news is that Season 2 has already been officially confirmed for fall 2026, and production is reportedly already underway. So yes, the wait has officially begun. Now I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think about the Season 1 finale? What twists do you believe are coming next? And would you want to see crossover episodes with Dutton Ranch? Drop your theories in the comments below, and meanwhile, check out the video on your screen next. Trust me, you're going to love it. The Marshals Season 2 trailer might have just revealed the biggest betrayal in the entire series. And honestly, after watching it a few times, I genuinely think Case is walking straight into a trap without even realizing it. Because the more you look closely at Dolly's behavior in this trailer, the more obvious it becomes that something is seriously wrong. The way she looks at Case, the way Tom suddenly starts acting calmer after everything that happened in the finale, and especially that final shot of Case standing alone while someone says, "Trust is what gets people killed." Yeah, this season already feels darker than Season 1. And the scary part is that Case still has no idea who he can actually trust anymore. The trailer wastes absolutely no time throwing us right back into the chaos from the finale. We immediately see East Camp surrounded by police vehicles, Marshals running through the property, and Case looking completely exhausted like he has not slept in days. And honestly, that makes perfect sense after everything that happened. By the end of Season 1, Case had already started realizing that the attacks against Thomas, Belle, and Calvin were not random at all. Someone organized everything from the shadows. Someone with money, connections, and enough power to stay invisible. But now Season 2 is finally exposing the truth piece by piece. And from what the trailer is hinting at, Tom is not working alone. One of the biggest moments in the trailer happens when Andrea starts investigating the suspicious vehicle connected to the attacks. We briefly see her inside a garage looking through security footage before suddenly turning around with this shocked expression on her face. And right after that, the trailer cuts directly to Dolly crying while telling Case, "I never wanted this to happen." That line alone changes everything. Because up until now, a lot of us thought Dolly might simply be unaware of what Tom was doing behind the scenes. But this trailer makes it feel like she has known far more than she admitted. Maybe not everything at first, but definitely enough to understand how dangerous Tom really is. And honestly, that betrayal would completely destroy Case. Because this is not just about business or East Camp anymore. Case genuinely trusted Dolly. After all the pain he went through in Yellowstone and after losing so many people, Dolly became someone who made him believe he could finally move forward. That is exactly why this feels so dangerous. Tom and Dolly did not force their way into Case's life. They earned his trust slowly and emotionally. And now it feels like they are about to use that trust against him in the worst possible way. At the same time, the trailer also makes it very clear that East Camp itself is becoming the center of an all-out war. We see multiple shots of armed men moving through the woods near the property, explosions happening near the barns, and one very quick scene where Case is yelling at someone to get Tate out of here now. Honestly, that moment alone already tells us Season 2 is going to be way more intense. Because whenever Tate gets pulled into danger, Case completely loses control emotionally. We already saw in Yellowstone how far he is willing to go to protect his family. And if Tom or the people working with him start targeting Tate directly, there is no way Case is going to hold back anymore. But what really caught my attention was Rip's appearance in the trailer. We only see him for a few seconds, but somehow those few seconds completely change the atmosphere. Rip is standing outside in Texas while watching Tom from a distance, and the look on his face says everything. He already knows something is off. And honestly, if Rip starts investigating Tom on his own, things are about to get really dangerous for everybody. Because Rip is not the kind of person who waits around for proof. Once he believes someone is a threat to the Dutton family, he handles it his own way. And I honestly think the trailer is heavily teasing a major crossover between Marshals and the Yellowstone world this season. Especially because Beth is also briefly shown talking to Case over the phone. We do not hear the full conversation, but she says something like, "People like him don't stop until they own everything." That line feels incredibly important because it sounds like Beth already understands exactly what kind of man Tom is. And if Beth gets involved, the entire situation could escalate much faster than anyone expects. Another thing the trailer keeps focusing on is Andrea. Honestly, she might end up becoming the emotional core of Season 2. Throughout the trailer, she is constantly shown trying to protect Case while also uncovering the truth herself. There is even one scene where Calvin warns her to stop digging into Tom's business before she gets herself killed. But Andrea clearly is not backing down. And after the finale, that honestly makes perfect sense. She already chose to stay in Montana instead of leaving for DC because deep down she could not walk away from Case. Now it feels like those feelings are only becoming stronger. There is actually one moment in the trailer that really stands out between Andrea and Case. They are standing outside East Camp late at night while everything around them feels completely broken, and Andrea tells him, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Honestly, that scene feels massive for their relationship. Because for so long Case has tried to deal with everything by himself. He pushes people away whenever things get dangerous. But Andrea is different. She keeps showing up no matter how messy things become. And I honestly think Season 2 is finally setting up a real relationship between them. At the same time though, that relationship could also become another weakness Tom and Dolly use against him. Because if there is one thing this trailer keeps hinting at, it is manipulation. Every single conversation feels layered. Nobody fully says what they mean anymore. Even Dolly's emotional scenes feel suspicious now. Especially one scene where she hugs Case while secretly looking over his shoulder with this completely cold expression on her face. Honestly, that might be the most chilling shot in the entire trailer. Because it feels like the real Dolly is finally starting to show. And then there is Thomas. Honestly, I think Season 2 is going to push him harder than ever before. The trailer shows him becoming increasingly frustrated as the attacks continue and law enforcement keeps failing to stop them. There is one moment where he slams his hand on a table and says, "This isn't business anymore. This is war." And after everything that happened in the finale, he is probably right. Because Tom is no longer hiding in the shadows carefully. He is getting bolder. The attacks are becoming more aggressive. And now innocent people are getting caught in the middle. One of the most emotional parts of the trailer actually involves Calvin and Belle. We see Belle recovering in the hospital after the attack, while Calvin stays beside her the entire time. Honestly, after everything they went through in Season 1, these scenes really hit emotionally. Especially because Belle finally seems ready to admit how much Calvin truly means to her. There is even a quick scene where she grabs his hand and tells him, "I should have trusted you sooner." And honestly, that relationship feels way stronger now because both of them have lost so much already. But at the same time, Calvin's cancer storyline also looks like it is becoming much more serious. The trailer briefly shows him sitting alone in a doctor's office looking devastated before quickly cutting away. And honestly, I have a feeling Season 2 is going to put Calvin through absolute emotional hell. Because now he is dealing with his health battle, while also trying to protect the people around him from Tom's growing influence. That is a massive amount of pressure for one person. Meanwhile, Maddie's role also seems much bigger this season. The trailer shows her training with the Marshals and working directly alongside Miles. And honestly, I really like this direction for her character because Season 1 spent a lot of time rebuilding her relationship with Calvin. Now it feels like she is finally stepping into this world herself instead of running away from it. But that also means she is becoming another possible target. Speaking of Miles, I honestly think he might end up being one of the most important players this season. The trailer repeatedly shows him investigating things quietly in the background, while everyone else is focused on surviving the chaos. And there is one moment where he tells Andrea, Tom's operation is bigger than we thought. That line feels extremely important because it hints that Tom may not even be the real mastermind here. There could be bigger people involved behind him. Investors, politicians, maybe even law enforcement connections. And if that is true, then this conflict is about to become much larger than just East Camp. Another scene that really stood out to me happens near the end of the trailer. Case walks into what looks like an abandoned warehouse and finds Tom waiting for him completely alone. No guards. No weapons visible. Just Tom calmly sitting there like he already knows he is in control. And then Tom says something terrifying. He tells Case, "You keep thinking this land belongs to you. But everything has a price." Honestly, that line perfectly explains Tom's entire mindset. He sees people, land, loyalty, and trust all as things that can be bought eventually. And what makes this even scarier is that Case looks genuinely conflicted during this scene. Because deep down, part of him probably still wants to believe Dolly is innocent. Part of him still wants to believe this entire situation can somehow be fixed peacefully. But I honestly think Season 2 is going to force Case to accept something very painful. Some people cannot be saved. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. The trailer also teases that Tate is going to play a much larger role this season too. We see him training horses in Texas, spending time around Rip, and slowly becoming more mature after everything he witnessed. But there is also this sadness around him now. Especially in one scene where he asks Case, "Why does everybody around us keep lying?" Honestly, that line hit hard because Tate is starting to understand how dangerous this world really is. He is no longer being protected from the truth anymore. And if I had to predict one major twist based on this trailer, I honestly think Dolly is eventually going to turn against Tom. Not because she suddenly becomes a good person, but because things spiral completely out of control.